The restaurant door swings open, and she walks in, elegant, poised, scanning the tables with nervous anticipation. But the reservation for two will remain half empty tonight, just like the one across the room where he sits, checking his watch for the 20th time. 2 strangers. 2 no-shows. 1 whispered observation that will change everything, asterisk. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales that remind us how life's disappointments can sometimes lead to our greatest blessings. James Morgan adjusted his tie for what felt like the 100th time, his fingers trembling slightly as he glanced at his watch again. 45 minutes late. The reservation had been for 7 p.m., and the expensive bottle of wine he'd splurged on was now half empty. The maitre d' shot him another sympathetic look that made James want to sink into the plush velvet chair and disappear. This was the 3rd blind date this month that had ended before it began. His sister-in-law had sworn this one was different. "She's perfect for you, James." A pediatric nurse who loves hiking and has the most infectious laugh. Well, her laugh might be infectious, but he'd never know. James took another sip of wine and tried to ignore the pitying glances from nearby diners. At the far end of the restaurant, Alexandra Chen removed her designer coat and handed it to the hostess. Her dark hair was pulled back in a sleek chignon, and her simple black dress probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. But money couldn't buy punctuality, apparently. Her date, a charming surgeon with a passion for classical music, according to her well-meaning assistant, was nowhere to be seen. "Ms. Chen, your table is ready," the hostess said, leading her to a quiet corner with a stunning view of the city lights. "Would you like to order a drink while you wait?" "Just sparkling water for now, thank you," Alexandra replied, her voice betraying none of the disappointment she felt. As CEO of Chen Innovations, one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country, she was used to hiding her emotions. But tonight, sitting alone at a table for two, she felt exposed in a way that boardroom confrontations never made her feel. James watched the beautiful woman being seated across the restaurant. Even from a distance, he could tell she was out of his league, the kind of woman who appeared on magazine covers, not the kind who would be interested in a high school English teacher with a mortgage and a 7-year-old daughter. Still, there was something in the way she kept checking her phone, in the slight furrow of her brow, that seemed familiar. After another 15 minutes and increasingly awkward exchanges with his server, James finally accepted the inevitable. He signaled for the check, determined to salvage what remained of his dignity. As he waited, he noticed the woman across the room doing the same thing. Their eyes met briefly, and he saw his own disappointment mirrored in her gaze. Without overthinking it, James picked up his half-full wine glass and walked across the restaurant. It was so out of character for him that he almost turned back halfway, but something pushed him forward. "Your blind date didn't show up either," he said quietly as he approached her table, the words more observation than question. Alexandra looked up, startled. Her first instinct was to dismiss this stranger, but something in his gentle, self-deprecating smile made her pause. "Is it that obvious?" she asked. "Only to a fellow member of the Stood-Up Club," James replied, gesturing to his empty table across the room. "Tonight's meeting had a turnout of 2, it seems." A small smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. "Please," she said, indicating the chair across from her. "Since we've both been abandoned, we might as well be abandoned together." James sat down, surprised by his own boldness. "I'm James Morgan. English teacher, amateur chef, and apparently not compelling enough for someone to show up for dinner." "Alexandra Chen," she replied, extending her hand. "CEO, workaholic, and clearly not worth canceling on properly." "CEO?" James raised his eyebrows. "Of what, if you don't mind me asking?" "Chen Innovations. We develop accessibility technology." James nearly choked on his wine. Everyone knew Chen Innovations, the company that had revolutionized assistive devices for people with disabilities. Their latest product, a neural interface that allowed people with severe mobility impairments to control computers with their thoughts, had been all over the news. "I'm sitting across from Alexandra Chen," he said, more to himself than to her. "My daughter did a school project on your company last year. She wants to be an engineer because of you." Alexandra's professional mask slipped for a moment, genuine pleasure warming her features. "Really? How old is your daughter?" "Emma's 7. Brilliant, stubborn, and currently missing her 2 front teeth," James said, pulling out his phone to show Alexandra a photo. "She lives with me full-time. Her mother isn't in the picture anymore." Alexandra studied the gap-toothed little girl with James's warm brown eyes and felt something shift inside her. "She's beautiful," she said softly. "And clearly has excellent taste in career aspirations." As the evening progressed, James forgot about his initial nervousness. Alexandra was nothing like he'd expected a billionaire CEO to be. She listened intently when he talked about Emma's science fair project and laughed genuinely at his stories about teaching Romeo and Juliet to disinterested teenagers. In turn, he found himself fascinated by her journey, the daughter of Chinese immigrants who had started her company in a garage with nothing but an idea and determination. "So why resort to blind dates?" James asked eventually. "I would think you'd have people lining up around the block." Alexandra's smile faded slightly. "Dating as a female CEO is complicated. Men are either intimidated by my success or see me as some sort of trophy to conquer. And I work so much that meeting people organically rarely happens." She twirled her water glass. "My assistant thinks I need balance in my life, hence tonight's setup." "Well, their loss is my gain," James said, then immediately felt his face flush. "I mean, I'm enjoying your company. That's all." Alexandra studied him for a moment. "You know, you're the first man I've met in years who hasn't immediately tried to impress me with his own accomplishments or connections." "That would be a short conversation," James laughed. "My greatest accomplishment this week was getting Emma to eat broccoli by convincing her it would give her superpowers." "Did it work?" "She ate it, then spent the evening trying to move her pencil case with her mind. I didn't have the heart to tell her it might take more than one serving." Alexandra laughed, a genuine sound that made heads turn in the restaurant. For the first time in longer than she could remember, she wasn't thinking about quarterly projections or product launches. She was simply enjoying a conversation with someone who seemed to see her, not her net worth or her company. As the restaurant began to empty, they realized they'd been talking for hours. James insisted on paying for his own meal despite Alexandra's protests, and they walked out into the cool night air together. "I live just a few blocks away," James said, pointing vaguely eastward. "Where are you headed?" Alexandra hesitated, then nodded toward a sleek black car waiting at the curb. "My driver can take me home." The reminder of their different worlds hung between them. James shoved his hands in his pockets, suddenly unsure. This was unexpected. But really nice. It was, Alexandra agreed. She seemed to be debating something internally. "James, would you and Emma like to come to the Chen Innovation Lab sometime? I could give you a personal tour. Some of our prototype technology might interest her if she's into engineering." James's eyes widened. She would absolutely lose her mind. "Are you sure?" "Completely sure." Alexandra pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. "This is my personal number. Text me when you're free." Their fingers brushed as she handed him the card, and for a moment, neither pulled away. Then Alexandra's driver opened the car door, breaking the spell. "Good night, James Morgan," she said, stepping toward the car. "Thank you for rescuing what could have been a very disappointing evening." "Good night, Alexandra," he replied. "And for what it's worth, whoever stood you up tonight made the biggest mistake of their life." She smiled one last time before the car door closed, and James watched as the vehicle merged into the flow of traffic, carrying her back to a world so different from his own. What neither of them knew as they parted ways that night was that their chance meeting would change both their lives in ways they couldn't imagine. The single dad and the billionaire CEO, an unlikely pair brought together by two people who never showed up. The lab tour happened the following weekend. Emma, wide-eyed and bursting with questions, charmed everyone at Chen Innovations, especially Alexandra. James watched in amazement as the formidable CEO got down on her knees in her expensive suit to explain neural interfaces to his daughter, her face animated with the same passion Emma showed when talking about her favorite subjects. "Your daughter is extraordinary," Alexandra told him as Emma experimented with a prototype under the supervision of one of the engineers. "She asked questions my R&D team hasn't even considered. She gets her brains from her mother," James said automatically, then winced. It was still hard to talk about Sarah, even 3 years after she'd walked out on them for her personal trainer, declaring that motherhood had been a mistake. Alexandra seemed to sense his discomfort. "And her heart from her father, I think," she said quietly. "You've done an amazing job with her, James." Their relationship developed slowly after that. Coffee meetings turned into dinner invitations. Alexandra started showing up at Emma's soccer games, cheering louder than anyone when the little girl scored her first goal. James helped Alexandra plant her first garden on the massive but neglected terrace of her penthouse apartment. There were challenges, of course. The first time paparazzi photographed them together, James's face was splashed across business magazines with headlines speculating about Alexandra Chen's mystery man. His students thought it was hilarious. James found it terrifying. Alexandra's board members questioned her judgment in dating someone so ordinary, concerns she shut down with icy precision. "My personal life is not up for discussion in this boardroom," she informed them. "And if you ever refer to James as ordinary again, you'll be looking for a new position. There is nothing ordinary about him." 6 months after their first meeting, James invited Alexandra to Emma's school play. She rearranged a crucial investor meeting to attend, slipping into the seat James had saved just as the lights dimmed. Emma, playing the part of a scientist discovering a new planet, beamed when she spotted Alexandra in the audience. "You came," James whispered, taking her hand. "I wouldn't miss it," she replied, squeezing his fingers. "This is more important." Later that night, after Emma had gone to bed still buzzing with excitement from her performance, Alexandra and James sat on his worn couch, a stark contrast to the custom furniture in her penthouse. "I've been thinking," Alexandra said carefully. "The lease on this apartment is almost up, isn't it?" James nodded. "Another month. I've been meaning to look for a new place. Emma needs her own room now that she's getting older, but the rents in this neighborhood are getting ridiculous. What if?" Alexandra took a deep breath. "What if you and Emma moved in with me? My place has more than enough room, and it's close to both your school and hers." James stared at her. "Alexandra, are you sure? That's a huge step." "I've never been more sure of anything," she said, her usual confidence momentarily replaced by vulnerability. "I love you, James. And I love Emma. When I'm with you too, I feel like I'm home for the first time in my life." James pulled her close, his heart racing. "I love you too. But I need you to understand something. Emma and I are a package deal. If you're in our lives, you're in all the way, school projects, nightmares, teenage drama eventually. All of it." "That's exactly what I want," Alexandra whispered against his shoulder. "All of it. The good, the bad, the ordinary everyday moments that turn out to be extraordinary when you share them with the right people." They moved in the following month. Emma was given free rein to decorate her new bedroom, resulting in a space that somehow combined astronomy, soccer, and an impressive collection of rocks she'd gathered on their weekend hikes. Alexandra converted one of the spare rooms into a classroom where James could grade papers and Emma could do her homework. The adjustment wasn't always smooth. Alexandra had to learn that not everything could be scheduled with the precision she applied to her business. James had to overcome his instinct to refuse help, to insist on providing everything for Emma himself. And Emma, wise beyond her years, had to navigate having another adult in her life who cared about her deeply. "Are you going to be my new mom?" Emma asked Alexandra one evening as they worked together on a science project. Alexandra's hands stilled. "I would never try to replace your mom, Emma. But I do love you very much, and I'll always be here for you, no matter what." Emma considered this seriously. "Dad says love isn't a limited resource. That loving someone new doesn't mean you have less love for someone else." "Your dad is a very wise man," Alexandra said, her voice thick with emotion. "Yeah, he's pretty smart for an English teacher," Emma agreed solemnly, making Alexandra laugh through her tears. A year after their first meeting, James proposed on the terrace garden they'd planted together. No elaborate setup, no expensive ring, though he'd saved for months for the simple diamond, just the two of them among the tomato plants and herbs, with the city lights spread out below them. "I never expected you," he told her, kneeling despite her protests that his good pants would get dirty. "You were never part of my plan. But now I can't imagine a future that doesn't have you in it." Alexandra, who had negotiated billion-dollar deals without flinching, found herself speechless. When she finally managed to say yes, her voice broke on the single syllable. They were married in a small ceremony with Emma as the flower girl and maid of honor combined. Alexandra's parents, initially skeptical of their daughter marrying a teacher, had been won over by James's genuine love for both Alexandra and his daughter. James's family, intimidated at first by Alexandra's wealth and status, had come to see the woman behind the CEO title. "I used to think success meant building something that would outlast me," Alexandra said in her vows. "Creating technology that would change the world. But you and Emma showed me that the most important things we build are the connections between us. The family we create together." Life settled into a new rhythm. Alexandra still worked long hours, but she was home for dinner most nights, helping Emma with her homework while James cooked. James continued teaching, refusing Alexandra's offer to pay off his student loans, though he did accept her insistence on starting a college fund for Emma. 2 years into their marriage, they welcomed twins, a boy and a girl who had Alexandra's determination and James's gentle nature. Emma took her role as big sister seriously, reading to the babies every night and explaining complex scientific concepts they couldn't possibly understand. "They need to start early if they're going to be engineers like me and Mom," she informed James solemnly. Alexandra, who had once believed she would never have time for children, found herself rearranging her entire company structure to create more family time. She implemented parental leave policies that became the industry standard and opened an on-site daycare at Chin Innovation's headquarters. "My greatest innovation wasn't technology at all," she told a surprised interviewer who asked about her changing priorities. "It was realizing that success means nothing if you don't have people to share it with." Years passed. Emma graduated high school as valedictorian and went on to MIT, following in her stepmother's footsteps while forging her own path. The twins grew into teenagers with their father's love of literature and their mother's head for business. James eventually became principal of his school, implementing programs that helped disadvantaged students access technology and opportunities they might otherwise have missed. And Alexandra, who had once measured her worth by her company's stock price, found herself treasuring different metrics: the number of family dinners around their table, the sound of laughter echoing through their home, the quiet moments with James when the children were finally asleep. On their 20th anniversary, they returned to the restaurant where they'd first met. The maitre d' recognized them immediately. They were something of a legend there now. "Your usual table is ready, Mr. and Mrs. Morgan," he said, leading them to the quiet corner where Alexandra had been sitting alone that fateful night. James pulled out Alexandra's chair, a gesture he'd never stopped performing no matter how many times she insisted she could seat herself. 20 years, he marveled. "Sometimes I still can't believe you chose me." Alexandra reached across the table for his hand, the same way she had on countless nights over the decades they'd shared. "Best decision I ever made," she said simply. Though technically, we have our no-show dates to thank. We should send them gift baskets, James joked. Dear strangers who stood us up, thank you for your absence. It changed our lives. Alexandra laughed, the sound as genuine as it had been the first night. I've been thinking, she said, her expression growing more serious. About stepping back from day to day.